defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. I'm going to keep my big VA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need. We know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right. First of all, let me tell you, welcome to the Free American Hour. I am Clay Douglas. My guest today is Skip Baker. Hello, Skip. Are you with me?
Hey, how's it going, Clay? Good to hear you.
Doing well, sir. Doing well. Now, folks, if you're, we've got a number of chat rooms open. You can go to talkshoe.com and check in to the Free American there. And you can go to freeamerican.com. All the links are there, including the link to skipbaker.com. Now, what I would like you to do, originally I had planned to put up some of Skip's drawings and paintings, which I have up on my website, where you probably logged into the show at. But if you go to skipbaker.com, it will just run, and you can listen to the show, listen to Skip and me, and you can view his art there, skipbaker.com. It's a link right there on my website, right underneath this show. And folks, I'm going to come right up front and tell you right now I'm in a tight financial situation. Equipment breakdowns, and we need to raise some funds immediately to keep the show, the sites, the air conditioning running. I'm offering a choice of you can have your choice of a PDF copy of one of my books. I've got 3 of them out, just by sending a donation by email through PayPal to clay@freeamerican.com. You can specify any book you want. And we're also talking about Liberty Villages are about to open in Texas. We've got we're talking about small, low-cost structures that from anything from the Texas tiny houses to the tornado-proof monolithic domes. And this is one of the things I want to have a conversation with Skip about, because I think we've got to alter our thinking, folks. We have been programmed. We have been programmed, and if you don't support the people like Skip and I that are bringing you some accurate information, truthful information here about what is happening around you. Now, everybody else is hitting around it. Everybody else is kind of shooting around it where, the economy's going to collapse, the banks are going to collapse. But there is a central theme and a central player behind this. And if you don't understand the deception that's being foisted on you, you've forgotten who you are. And your enemies are out there. In this last century, they've killed over 100 million people, and they bragged about it. They bragged about it, ladies and gentlemen. Who bragged about it? Now, you know, I know there's going to be people out there that can tell you, oh, Clay Douglas, they're anti-Semitic, they're racist, they're anti-Semitic. They tell you that because they don't want you to listen to us because we make perfect sense. And they did kill 60 million of us. The white Holocaust, they killed 60 million white Christians that happened to be Russians. Skip, is that accurate?
Oh, definitely, yeah. In fact, they started the USSR in 1917 when they murdered the Tsar and took over, and Bolshevik is just another word for Jew, and people don't realize that. They think it was a bunch of Russians that got together and murdered their own Tsar, but no, it was the Jews that moved in from Germany, and with the banking support of the New York Jews to take the whole place over, and that's how they started communism. So they killed a lot of people with that.
Jacob Schiff, the New York banker, the arm of the Rothschild in the United States, financed Marx and Lenin. They put them on a train, they loaded them up with gold, and they sent them to Russia to murder the Tsar.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
Okay, now, one other thing. Now, we had World War II, the war to end all wars, except they already have a third war planned for us with the Muslims, which they did, 150 years ago. And these wars, these are all wars that are started, financed by bankers. They finance both sides of all the things. Now they're starting to say that they're starting to point the finger at Americans. I've got a picture of a drone up, and police departments are using drones right now. And I've got a link to an article on my website about right-wing extremists in America. That's meaning most of us, veterans, Christian identity, and militias. And my book, Mystery Babylon, folks, tells you exactly what Skip is telling you, what Skip tells you with his artwork, what Skip tells you about history. And you want to think we're radicals because they don't want you to know who's ruling over you. Now, if you want a simple way to learn who rules over you, simply find out who you're not allowed to criticize. That was Voltaire that said that, Voltaire.
Oh, yeah, that's the one group you can't criticize because you'll immediately be called an anti-Semite, even though they're not Semites, and they're not Israelites, and they're not Judites. They're not victims of gas chambers or anything else they claim to be. So they have deceived the whole world, just like Revelation said they would, that they would con everybody into thinking that they were the Israelites when they weren't. They're not Judites, and they're not Semites. So it's just amazing that everybody has fallen for their lies, and they're sound asleep. It's incredible. They don't study their Bibles. Instead, they'll watch the crypto Jew John Hagee on Sunday and believe all of his lies, and they won't even open up their Bible to see if he's telling them the truth or not.
Now, you just sent out a link to John Hagee, and I want to talk about this because I just had somebody on my show a few days ago that basically said that our problem's not just the Jews. It's the Christian Zionist out there, and that Hagee is preaching to, and these people think they're good Christians, and they want you to go over. They want you to believe it's okay to go over and bomb Iran, where we came from, folks. We came from there, didn't we? The Aryan race, the Caucasian. We were the Israelites. We settled there, we were in slavery there, we walked out across the Caucasus Mountains and became called Caucasians and forgot who the hell we were.
Right, yeah, because we went in the south end, known as Israelites, through the Pass of Israel, came out the northwest end, known as Caucasians, and many forgot who they were, but all down through history there have been people who have kept track of their heritage and For instance, Queen Elizabeth can trace her heritage back 153 generations to King David, who was not a Jew. He spent 6 months over in Edom slaughtering Jews 3,000 years ago, and yet they conned the world into thinking that King David was a Jew and that their 666 hexagram is his star. So it really is pretty funny that they have pulled off such a deception that is right before your eyes if you just open your eyes.
Let's talk about what's right before our eyes right now, folks. You know, now, folks, as Skip just pointed out, we're not anti-Semitic. This ain't about we are the Semites, folks. So no, I kind of like us white guys, you know, but they want you to believe that, because they are afraid of me getting any type of support. This really is a battle. Could it be any clearer? Zionist Jews have started every war, and we're behind the slaughter of 60 million white Christian Russians, and here they control Homeland Security. Are you aware, Skip, that Jews don't have to go through TSAs?
Yeah, it's really quite amazing to think that the devil's children can go to the airport without going through the checkpoints and everything.
Or being radiated. Right. They don't have to be radiated, and they got a free pass to go on board, and this was handed to them by Homeland Security.
Well, sure, yeah, they're in charge of that. They're in charge of everything. The devil and his children own and control everything, and that's exactly the way Scripture said it would be right there at the end, and it's all coming out just the way the prophecy said it would. So there's really nothing to worry about, because it's in Yahweh's hands, and he's going to really clean up here pretty soon.
You know, sometimes those, Skip, now, pardon me, this is where I may part company with some Christian identity, folks, but much of our Bible, you know, was handed to us by the Jews, created by Jews, to enslave the human race.
Well, you got to remember, it was mistranslated by them. The original writings in Paleo-Hebrew were right on the mark, and they weren't written by Jews because they didn't write a word of the Bible, but King James hired a bunch of them in 1611 to help translate the Hebrew. Well, that was a stupid mistake, because they're not Hebrews, and their Hebrew is a fake Hebrew, so it's more like Yiddish than Hebrew. And it's amazing that he relied on these people to help translate the Bible, because that way they were able to put in thousands of mistranslations to mislead people. And if you don't have a concordance to look up all the words, you're not going to know what the original Hebrew was saying at the time. So it's really important to learn what the Bible really says, and that it wasn't written by Jews at all. It was written by Israelites and Judahites, and no Jew is an Israelite or a Judahite or a Hebrew. So people will have a hard time sorting all this out, because they've grown up for a generation believing all these lies. And it's the great falling away that St. Paul predicted would happen, when people would be supporting the Antichrist instead of Christ. So it's amazing to see the prophecy come true like this so accurately.
You know, I just read an interview, and I've got this up on my website. Let me just play a little clip from this, because, you know, I consider myself to be really fair about this. To me, what's important here is, in this country, first time in a few thousand years, we recreated Jerusalem, Jew-Salem, as you put in your art. We recreated a safe haven for the tribes of Israel, us.
Right.
And we've been under attack for easily 3,000 years.
Oh, yeah. In fact, from the very day that Adam and Eve had their orgy with the devil's children, we've been under attack since then because God said he would make enemies between the seed of Satan and the seed of the woman. So the seed of the woman is his offspring, his household. Adam was the son of God, and Jesus was the second Adam. So the Bible is all about the white race, from the Garden of Eden right up through the end of the book of Revelation. It's all about the white race, but that has been hidden from many people, and they think that Jesus died for the Chinese and the Africans, but he said himself that I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, we were all in Europe at that time because we had left Israel and Judah 600 years before that. So people don't realize what happened in 125 BC when King John Hyrcanus II went down there and defeated the Edomite Jews in Idumea and forced them to join the religion, so to speak. But no Jew can be a Judite.
Let me play this little clip here, just a little clip. What I did is read from an interview done in 1979 with a Jew, Harold Rosenthal. This was the assistant to Senator Jacob Javits. I shared an interview that was done in 1979 with the assistant to Senator Javits. And alright. I shared a little bit of this earlier. When the come on, Clay. U.S. foreign policy was mentioned. Listen to this. Rosenthal smiled and suggested, the bedroom confidence of the interview was all but set aside. With disdain and mockery, he sneered at the American stupidity and failing to see through the entire scope of Kissinger's foreign policy. It is the Zionist communist policy from beginning to end, yet the citizens think this Jewish policy will benefit America. He cited détente and Angola as examples of Jewish diplomacy. The credulous sorry about the interruptions here. We were just experimenting with this new filming technique. Okay. But the point is that he laughed at America. He was laughing at Americans all the way back into Kissinger when Kissinger was setting up this whole situation that's going on right now with China. They think 50 years in advance. They at least that long.
Oh, hundreds of years. Because when you read the protocols, you realize that one generation hands it off to the next generation, and they have the same overall plan from the beginning. And that's just normal for the devil's children. And it's amazing how few people have read the protocols of the Elders of Zion. And if they would, a lot of people would wake up and say, hey, this was outlined by the devil himself. It's incredible, and that's why that interview with Rosenthal is so important, because he just told Pastor White everything that was in their plan, and he was just blown away. Even the Holocaust, the fake Holocaust, Rosenthal admitted to, and Pastor White was astounded that they had such an evil plan, and yet so few people have read that interview. It's one of the really important things to read, because you see the overall plan of Satan and his children to take over the whole world, and of course they will do that soon. And when they begin to enforce their mark of the beast, only then will the Baptists wake up and realize that the Star of David is the mark of the eighth beast. So there's going to be a 180-degree turn here pretty soon, and millions of people are going to be lost because they're going to take this thing thinking that, well, it's the seal of Jesus. How can it be the mark of the beast? So it's just astounding that they have believed all these lies St. Paul said, and that they would be lost, destroyed, because they didn't want to believe the truth. And it is amazing when you try to tell somebody the truth and they don't want to hear it. It's just anathema to them. So it's going to happen soon, and we're going to see it. So it's just going to be amazing to see this whole thing turn around, because only Yahweh could do that. Because if you look at it from our perspective, it's hopeless. So it's very amazing to think that he's going to turn this whole thing around very quickly when it happens.
Well, you know, I've told people, Skip, that I don't believe God stopped talking to us 2,000 years ago. And I think God uses men like you and me to convey thousand generations of knowledge.
Well, it's been so lost because it's been so perverted, especially the last 500 years, because the way the KJV was written with 27,000 mistranslations in it, it's amazing that anybody can sort it out. But if you get a good concordance and you look up all the words in the text, you find out that in many cases they actually use the opposite word in places to describe something. And when you have that kind of mistranslation, you get a completely distorted and warped view of what the original text said. But if you go back to the original Paleo-Hebrew and the original Greek, you can find out exactly what all these texts say, and you get the true picture of what the Bible is about, and only then can you understand it. So it's quite helpful to learn how to use a concordance and look up the definitions and find out that there were 5 or 6 different ones for each word, and that in most cases the wrong one was used. So it's amazing that any of it can be sorted out.
Well, they change the words. They change. You know, that's not a hunting rifle now. That's an assault rifle. We change the meaning.
Yeah, right. So at every point they turn things around. Like the word Gentile shouldn't even be in the Bible because it's a Latin word that means not a Roman citizen. So that would make Jesus a Gentile. Because he wasn't a Roman citizen. So they made it look like this meant non-Jew. Well, that's absurd, because many places where it's mistranslated, it means another Israelite in a different nation. That's all it means. So when Paul talks about the Gentiles, he's talking about going to the Israelites in Europe, and that's why they took out the last chapter of Acts, because it's about his trip to Europe to talk to the Gentiles, which were really his kinsmen. And that word has caused more trouble than any other word in the Bible, that they've inserted this thing Gentiles, because they've made the real Israelites look like Gentiles and made the Jews look like the Israelites. So
Now I have a Jew in my chat room here, Rabbi Ted, who ain't a rabbi, who's too chicken shit to use a real name or an identity, like you or I do. I put our phone numbers up there. He don't have a phone. He says, my people are not the Antichrist like your guest believes. Would you like to respond to that, Chris?
Well, it's just amazing that that they have been the Antichrist since they murdered them 2,000 years ago. And of course now they're trying to say that the Romans did it. Well, the Roman Pontius Pilate washed his hands publicly of the whole thing and told them they had to do it. So they took his troops out and did it with their assistance. But it wasn't the Romans, because the Jews said, let his blood be upon us and upon our children. And of course it is. And a Jew can't be saved because he's an Edomite, Canaanite, and not even God can save that, because that's the devil's lifeblood, devil's offspring. So it is just amazing that everybody thinks Paul was a Jew, and that David was a Jew, and that Jesus was a Jew, and of course all those are lies.
Paul, wait a minute. Now, here's another point, and I'll get the Christian identity folks up in arms against me. Clay smokes marijuana. We can't endorse him if he smokes marijuana. I'm sorry, it's the plant of renown that the Bible told you about. So, excuse me. But at any rate, they'll say, oh well, Paul. Wait a minute. I don't know a Paul. I know a Saul that was a Pharisee that might have fell off his horse or his donkey when the thought hit him that he didn't have to kill these Christians. He could take it over.
Well, you got to remember that he was a Benjaminite. He wasn't a Judite, or he was a Pharisee in that he was trained as one, but he didn't realize the depth with which the Edomites had infiltrated the priesthood. But once he got the vision from Christ, he made a 180-degree turn and turned around. And his translation, the translation of his stuff is so bad that Jefferson even created his own Bible because he was so upset with some of the things he thought Paul was saying. But when you go back to the original Greek and get a Septuagint Bible, you can find out that the mistranslations are so bad that they just twisted everything he set up so bad that it's very hard to find out what was really said in those passages.
How about this? Not only do we have, the Council of Nicaea. Now, I've made the statement here that Jesus himself said, "You can do what I do and more," didn't he?
Sure.
Okay, so I think at Council of Nicaea they tried to basically promote him upstairs. Oops, hold on a second here. Let me see, I think I lost something here. Did I lose something? Nope.
Are you able to get the chat room and everything?
Yeah, I've got everything up. Everything's up. Everything's still working. But they promoted Jesus to God because they didn't want men like you and I aspiring to be the kind of man Jesus was. And it's that aspiration that makes us Christians, not the walls of the church or the dome on the Vatican.
Well, of course, he was Yahweh in the flesh, because when Ron Wyatt found the blood of Christ on the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant in 1982 and had it tested, it had only 23 chromosomes from Mary and 1 Y chromosome from Yahweh to create a boy baby. So here was a person with only 24 chromosomes, the Son of God, and really he's Yahweh in the flesh, who came down because he said in the prophecies before the foundations of the earth were laid that he would be our salvation if we failed, if we went to the earth in human bodies and failed and fell. He would come and redeem us, which is what he did. So once you understand what these original languages say, it's a whole new viewpoint of what the Bible's all about. And to think that Jeremiah put the Ark of the Covenant in his cave directly under where the cross of Christ would go 500 years later is amazing, because he anointed the Most Holy with his blood when it dripped down in the crack of the rock and hit the Ark of the Covenant. So it's just astounding that such a prophecy as Daniel 9 would be fulfilled that way, and he would actually be the atonement for the white Israelite race. And to have that all fit together is just amazing. It's the second 7 times prophecy from 539 BC to 1982 when Ron Wyatt found the blood of Christ on the ark. So
yeah, I would like to talk about that, because I've had that up, and that's included in my book. I mean, this is this story just hasn't been told, but I could almost see the lab techs in Israel screaming, "This blood's alive! This blood's alive!"
Right, exactly. 2,000-year-old blood that was still alive. They were absolutely astounded.